Big thing I want to get out right up front, again, this is our flagship, right? So everything about this vehicle is meant to really just show boldness and strength. And I think what you'll see, I think you'll agree with me that especially when you see not only the rugged exterior design, but the interior, is the targets have been met in terms of being really segment above, surprising level of luxury for this segment. So the design concept, or really one of the product concepts here, is what the Japanese call ifu nodo, and that means authentic and majestic. I had it described to me by one of my Japanese counterparts as a term you might use if you see like the general on his horse or the king on his horse or something like that. So that's the idea. Again, with our flagship, we want to really give it everything we got, really show that level of pride. So again, as I mentioned before, dynamic shield, but interpreted a little differently. Here again you see kind of flat hood that comes a little farther out instead of being raked, more vertical lines. And as you look and you see the profile, for example, we've got the flat roof. It all really plays together. And it's no accident if it brings to mind something like a Montero Sport, where you had a similar kind of roof design. Again, lighting signature, not exactly the same as Eclipse Cross, but following in the same general theme, right? We've moved the headlights down lower, helps reduce glare, DRL at the top, which really makes it easy to call attention to the vehicle. In this case, the fog lamp is actually down here. And just again, emphasizing width, and I'll speak to that again at the rear. One of the key points here is this is an alliance platform, right, with our alliance partners, Renault and Nissan. But this vehicle, engineered, designed, and built by Mitsubishi. So it's not on a shared line, anything like that. So really, it's just the platform underneath that you don't see. And that platform is entirely new. So until the end of last year, it had never been used by any alliance partner. So you can imagine the benefits there in terms of NVH, rigidity, and everything you get from that. As we move to the rear, and you probably go either way, take note, these are segment leading 20-inch wheels. Again, fitting a flagship. I mentioned the flat roof design. Again, something we're very proud of, really brings in that heritage. You'll see a different interpretation of the hexagon design back here. Again, the biggest thing I think you'll hear me say a lot is we're trying to emphasize width and strength. So I mentioned that three-dimensional taillight design. You still see the three legs here, but in this case we've gone horizontal to really call attention. We've got this major line here just saying, okay, we're wide, we're strong, we're impressive. And we still have a standard third row. So that's the only one in this segment, in the compact crossover segment. Generally speaking, we refer to it as an occasional use third row. If you're like me and have young kids, that's basically perfect. So that's still there. When that seat is down, of course, we've got one up, one down, so you can see both. We've got significant improvements in terms of cargo space as well.
Is that power folding or manual?
Manual. And then for the second row, there is a release here as well. It is manual, but it'll pop down for you. It's also a 40-20-40 seat design, and that's standard. So you can fold that middle section down if you have skis or Home Depot items or anything like that. That's there, of course, your cup holders you can see there on the back. All right, let's move inside. We want to make sure we spend plenty of time. Sorry. Plenty of time here. So, first and foremost, before I dive into technology, this is our top trim, top option package. And first for us, it's actually a semi-annealed leather, so it's a premium grade leather. The SEL trim on which this is built also has leather, but this is a top option with this kind of two-tone. We call it black and settle tan. I'll do this so we'll stop beeping. And actually, we may need to close all the doors to fire it up. Let's see. Oh, there it goes. It took it a second. So yeah, 9-inch screen, so that's a 1-inch upgrade in this vehicle as well from Used to be the top option was 8-inch. And you saw, yeah, I think the graphics are really cool. We also have, as you go through the drive modes, there's 6 in the all-wheel drive, you get a nice little image. I found it to be very useful. It's easy to see what you're in, right? It's clearly that snow, let there be no doubt. And that is that's a 12.3 inch TFT, so digital cluster display. And basically, let me jump into there. And this, I like to try to make notes so you know what to look for when you're driving. This little button here is kind of index, the 3 lines. That's a nice little shortcut to get you in. It's upset because it's not on. Let's see. Promise I won't leave it on too long. And you get the splash screen there when it starts. And it wakes up for a second. Oh, I know why that's doing that.
You got children in the back.
There we go. So you've got a couple of meter options here, and you'll see why in a minute, but whoops. You can change your meter view. You get kind of these cool vertical gauges, but of course that gives you more area in the middle just for more information. This shortcut also can get you the driver assistance features, so if you want to toggle anything off today, it's just a really nice way to get into some instant choices. This will basically, when you're on the normal gauges, you can choose either what's shown here or in the center of the traditional round gauge. So if you want to play with what you put there, that's something you can do. You'll see the MPG state here, for example. It is possible when a destination is in to get the map over here. So if you want to see that today, go to this navigation mode, which right now is effectively like a compass. But when there's a destination set, you'll see kind of the little 2 dot, and then you use this scroll wheel and it'll take you to the map. 10.8 inch HUD. This is the on windshield type. So there's a lot you can do with that. You can get to the menus here. There's an on off down here. So that's what this little eye is. So if it's off for any reason and you want to turn it back on, you can do that. And then I believe everyone will be set up for navigation when you start. You can always go here if you want to find other functions to menu. And that leads me to something we're very excited about, which is wireless Apple CarPlay. So it has Android Auto and CarPlay. CarPlay is wireless at this time. Hopefully we're working on wireless Android Auto, but don't have it at this point. And then we also have wireless charging. Of course, that works with an Android phone or an Apple phone down here. So it's a nice combination, right? You don't have to. It's interesting when they first talked about having wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, you think, well, that's great, but if you're on a long trip, you're just going to run down your battery, right? So you've got charging right up here. Feel free to use that today. You can basically go in, if you have an Apple phone, go into connections, do add new and pair, and all the vehicles were set up to have Wi-Fi on, which is required for wireless. So it should pop up and ask if you want to do wireless CarPlay. So obviously if something doesn't pop up for you, come get one of us and we'll get it working. And yes, sorry. And all the vehicles out there have cables too, if you do want to cable up and use Android Auto or cabled CarPlay for any reason. Big news for us is My Pilot Assist, and it's basically controlled by this green button right here. That has effectively replaced the adaptive cruise control on-off button, and it will work as adaptive cruise control. So if you're out on the highway, you can turn that on. You've got your normal set, and then there's your distance control. But you should, on a road that has really good lane markers, so any highway generally speaking, you'll see these lines here turn green if you are on this screen. And that's basically telling you, okay, it can move into My Pilot Assist mode. So what My Pilot Assist is doing is taking that fore-aft control that you get from adaptive cruise control, and it's adding our very latest lane keep assist. And the key thing to think about there is, very often we've had lane assistance technologies that effectively let you basically leave the lane. So it was more of an emergency, hey, I'm stopping you, I don't want you to get into trouble. This is a centering technology, so it's really working actively to keep you in the center. So definitely encourage everybody to use that. Big news for us, kind of big leap in terms of technology.
That's radar based or video?
Radar and camera. So it uses both. So
silly question maybe, is that radar uses light or uses radio waves? You know,
It is radio waves.
radio waves.
So yeah, I believe it's a medium range radar. Yeah. And then the camera is kind of your, call it sort of your second line of defense, and also that's object classification, right? And it does have your pedestrian detection, everything like that. So I kind of went through the technology. I went through semi-inland leather and higher level of luxury. There are other things in here that really speak to this Japanese concept of omotenashi. So that was one of the big themes with the interior development on this vehicle. And that means hospitality in Japanese. But it's really, it translates, it doesn't translate perfectly. It's kind of a higher level of hospitality, anticipating what your guest needs. So the idea is that we've really thought of everything in here, both in terms of luxuriousness and comfort, but also just attention to detail. So what you'll see is with our drive mode selector, every knob, and even the window switches, which is highly unusual, you've got a very similar finish, and it actually carries over here as well. So the idea is, again, going really segment above in terms of luxuriousness and thoughtfulness. And sometimes it means really seemingly small things. If you look on the rear of the front seats, instead of just the one big map pocket, you've got individual pockets and really a place to put your cell phone if you want to, right? So it just makes you wonder, why hasn't everybody thought of that, right? It's just thinking about how somebody actually uses the vehicle. Beyond that, of course, kind of the bold and wide theme carries over into the interior. And that was one of the ideas. That's why the HVAC controls are down more, so that we can have this nice continuous design. Again, just giving you that feeling of spaciousness and kind of that substantial feeling. And again, I always like to say, with the seat back pockets and then also with the steering wheel, sometimes it's the small things that can make such a big difference. This is actually a much larger diameter than you'd anticipate in a crossover vehicle in this segment. So it just really adds to that overall feel.
And they seem pretty thick also, right?
Yeah, exactly. The grip diameter and just kind of the ruggedness of the perforated material. Yeah, I always like to call attention to that.
That is similar to the front, right? The shield.
It does carry over some of the shape, yeah. And then again, you'll see again that kind of matching knurled finish here, even on the steering wheel. So again, big themes here: flagship, and just bold and all about presence. And again, remember, majestic was that Japanese term, so strong terms. Last thing I'll mention: this is our first implementation of shift-by-wire. Very specifically wanted to keep something that was as similar as possible to a traditional shift lever. So needless to say, there's P on top, and when you do go into reverse, there's a button here on the side to push. So a little bit different from just standard shifter, but I think it's as close as one can possibly get to it.
The CVT, right?
It is, yes. Stepped CVT. So definitely encourage you, I know you always will, to pay attention to that, because I find it to be a really good implementation.
CVT, so you're like simulating like
Eight step, kind of like an
how
automatic.
do you do that, with sound or with,
The actual control of the ratios. So I mean, it really is giving you that control of the RPMs. You'll see that it steps rather than just kind of go up to high RPM and just sit there. Now, maybe wide open throttle, it's going to go pretty far up because that's where it needs to be geared. But definitely encourage you to use it. You've got paddle shifters too that'll walk you through those steps. But it's a great implementation of CVT in this case.